Welcome to Energy Matters, presented by New Jersey Policy Institute. I'm your host, Jeanette Hoffman. Thanks for joining us. We have a great show today. Erick Ford from the New Jersey Energy Policy Coalition is here to discuss the state's energy landscape. Alyssa Frank from the New Jersey Civil Justice Institute discusses the impact of a lawsuit that will raise your energy rates. But first, Tim White, president of NJACRE and board member of the Meadowlands Chamber, talks to us about energy costs and mandates that are impacting the business community. I'm here with Tim White, president of NJACRE, past chair of the Meadowlands Chamber of Commerce, and a current board member. Tim, thanks so much for being here.
Jeanette, thanks for having me. It's great being here.
So there's so much to talk about right now. The Meadowlands Chamber of Commerce is hosting a conference called New Jersey's Energy Appetite. Tell me why the Chamber felt it was so important to host this event for your members right now.
Absolutely. So I've been a member of the Meadowlands Chamber for the past 20 years and on their board. And every year we put together, one of our major events is called the Thought Leaders Conference. And every year we pick a different topic. This year, back in the spring, we decided to do an energy conference because it is by far the topic that everybody wants to talk about in the business community in North Jersey and throughout the Meadowlands region.
Yeah, and both gubernatorial candidates are talking about it. In their first campaign ads, they both talked about energy prices.
Yep.
So, but talking about businesses, how important is energy affordability and reliability to New Jersey's competitiveness in attracting and keeping businesses right here in the Meadowlands region?
It's extremely important. And I know we hear a lot about residential energy prices and energy availability in New Jersey, but not a lot about how it impacts the business community. And what the business community really is looking for is three things. Energy availability, making sure New Jersey is producing enough energy within our state to fulfill our needs. Reliability, so that our energy production keeps pace during storms, during other situations where production may be down. And affordability. These business leaders, some of them have been in the Meadowlands region for decades, investing in businesses, growing their businesses, and they're looking at it into the future and saying, if we don't have affordability and we're not certain of the reliability of New Jersey's energy environment, we're not going to invest in New Jersey anymore. And that's a real impact on our businesses and on our employment and overall business community in northern New Jersey and throughout the state.
Yeah, and especially when neighboring states like New York and Pennsylvania, they employ different energy strategies, and it could result in more affordable energy costs.
Oh, absolutely. We take a look at our neighbors in Pennsylvania. They're fortunate. So about 60% of Pennsylvania underneath the ground is the Marcellus Shale, which is the most abundant source for domestic natural gas in the country. They're our neighbors. Pennsylvania's doing a really good job of using their resources to power new data centers, AI hubs, and basically to fulfill the needs of their business community. And we're their neighbors. And we've sort of dropped the ball over the last 8 years or so in our energy policy, and it's led to the situation that we have right now.
Yeah, so talk to me about AI. Critics have said the state doesn't have enough energy supply to support growth in areas like data centers and AI hubs. Why is that? What is driving that shortage?
First of all, that's a fact. We don't have enough energy, domestically produced energy right now to support the increasing demand for data centers and AI hubs. And what other states have done is incorporated more of an all-the-above energy strategy. And that's not my term, but smart people have used that term before.
Yeah.
And what it is, it's basically taking all of your available energy production resources in terms of nuclear, modular reactors, natural gas, solar, and putting together a energy environment in which it's an all-of-the-above approach, including hydrogen, battery storage, that will fulfill our needs. And New Jersey, for the last 8 years or so, has been really focused on basically solar and offshore wind, and they've forgotten about investing in new natural gas infrastructure and nuclear infrastructure and hydrogen and battery storage.
Yeah. So, what lessons would you tell the next administration, whether it's Mikey Sherrill's administration or Jack Ciattarelli's administration, should they take away from Pennsylvania?
I think Pennsylvania has done a good job looking at it from a holistic approach, and frankly, that was the impetus to start NJACRE. So we're an advocacy organization focused on promoting hydrogen, renewable natural gas, and battery storage. And we, going back 3 years, identified that the state wasn't seriously considering any of these three energy technologies. So we started this organization to promote them. But we see in Pennsylvania, they're already adopting all the above approach, and they're doing a really good job. And they're going to be online with data centers and AI hubs before New Jersey is.
Wow, so they're a couple steps ahead of us
Absolutely.
already.
Yeah.
And talk to me, when we look at where we are now with this energy shortage, I feel like we need to go and look to the past and what mistakes that were made. How is the current administration's opposition to the new natural gas pipelines? How has that affected our state's economic and energy outlook and where we are right now?
I mean, it's been really stagnant. New Jersey for the last 8 years has not produced any new natural gas pipelines, natural gas generation, or nuclear for that matter. So it's really, this administration has been primarily focused on solar and offshore wind. Offshore wind, as you know, has not come to fruition. So that led to the situation that we're in now.
Yeah, and listen, everybody wants a clean environment. Everybody wants green energy and renewables. But how do you balance that with these dependable, reliable sources that we need to get onto our grid?
Right. One great example is the EV mandate. So the business leaders I'm talking to, almost every single one of them believes that the eventual reality is they're going to convert their fleets, whether it be bus fleets or transportation fleets, eventually over to EV when it becomes more affordable, reliable, and frankly, there's enough charging stations.
Yeah.
And if you sprinkle in a little government incentives, that's always good as well. But the fact that the state just unilaterally imposed a mandate with an arbitrary deadline, these business leaders are looking at that and saying they're not given the autonomy to make a business decision about that. But meanwhile, every single one of them says the eventual reality is they're going to be phased in, moving towards EVs anyway, when the technology is there, when it's affordable, and when charging stations are available. But for the state to come in and just pick an arbitrary deadline and say your entire fleet has to convert over to EVs by a certain date, it's just not a realistic approach. And I think many members of the business community feel sort of trapped in that situation right now. And then those are the same people that are looking to invest more in the state of New Jersey, and they're sort of reluctant to do so right now.
Yeah, and not to mention the grid isn't ready to support that supply of EVs coming online. And the Trump administration actually repealed that in California and New Jersey, so there's a little bit of a reprieve for now.
Yes.
But then, we also see Governor Murphy saying he's trying to get passed through lame duck legislation to mandate clean energy by 2035.
Yeah.
So what do you think about
that? The ideology is still there, right? The want for some of the leaders in New Jersey to push for these EV mandates or find a way to do it is still there. And that seems to be sort of the problem. Yeah.
And so talking about EV mandates, there's also a bill in the Senate that would mandate home electrification and electrification of heating sources. How would that apply to businesses? And are businesses also concerned about that?
Oh, absolutely. We saw on the residential side, a study came out that said in other states where they mandated electrification for residential use, it cost up to $26,000 per house. So multiply that by the size of whatever business you're running, warehouse, distribution center, data center. So it's times 10, times 20, times 30, depending on the size of your building. So it affects businesses throughout the state.
Yeah, not to mention taking away a restaurant's gas stove
and
replacing it with electric.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I remember they tried to do that in New York City to pizza ovens, and everybody went crazy.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
Hopefully that's.
And most of us would say New Jersey has better pizzerias anyway in New York, so we would be equally affected by such a mandate. Yes.
Better pizza, better bagels.
Yes,
absolutely.
that is true.
Yeah. So where do you see the role of the next administration in 2026? Rolling out the balance of emerging technologies that you talked about, and our stable new supplies and green energy. What is the mix? What does it look like to you?
I think so. So again, all of the above approach to energy generation and distribution kind of makes sense, but to implement that, you need a regulatory agency that sort of believes in that, right? So then it comes back to the BPU. And as you know, New Jersey specifically, our governor has, it's a very powerful chief executive position. The governor gets to appoint many people to boards and commissions throughout the state. And I would suggest that the BPU is probably the most important board in the state in terms of like how it affects the residents of the state and business owners in the state. And if you put people with ideological sort of leanings one way or another into those positions where they're the regulators, it causes these types of problems. Ideally, a business owner I was talking to last week made a point. He would love to see energy policy wonks, like for lack of a better term, energy nerds in that position that understand supply and demand, that understand affordability, that understand how long it takes to get a new energy generation source online, and look at it from an objective point of view rather than putting ideological spin onto everything or pushing for one technology over another.
So what type of experience ideally would a BPU commissioner have in Tim White's administration?
I think somebody that is under the radar in terms of like, public persona, but somebody with a long history of understanding energy policy, energy demand, and the supply side of things.
And so how would, ideally, how would a more balanced, less partisan regulatory approach benefit the business community?
Because I think they would look at things objectively and say, how do we reduce energy costs by increasing reliability and availability, frankly. And they would probably take in all of the above approach and say, look, we need some hydrogen projects. We could do carbon capture on our landfills. We could introduce new nuclear projects, including SMRs. So there's a lot of things you could do if you sort of open up your mind and say, there's different levels, different types of technologies out there that other states are utilizing, by the way, successfully, that New Jersey can utilize as well. We shouldn't just shut the door on a certain type of energy production process because it doesn't fit our narrative.
Last question for you. What does NJACRE stand for?
Stands for the New Jersey Association of Clean and Renewable Energy, and we advocate for hydrogen technology, renewable natural gas, and battery storage technologies.
Well, that sounds great. Good luck at your conference, and I hope you'll join us again.
Thank you.
I'm joined by Alyssa Frank, president of New Jersey Civil Justice Institute. Alyssa, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Jeanette.
Well, first tell me about New Jersey Civil Justice Institute. What does your organization do, and how does it benefit New Jersey taxpayers?
Yes, of course. So NJCJI, which is what we like to call it, serves to ensure that people are not blindsided by needless and very expensive lawsuits. We envision a civil justice system that is fair, balanced, and affordable for everybody. We benefit taxpayers because when businesses especially are blindsided by expensive lawsuits, this just doesn't hit the business. It also hits people in their households every single day. So while the business would be paying, people are paying as well.
So how are they paying through taxes or the prices of groceries, or how do consumers pay more?
Right, so when businesses are blindsided by lawsuits or by bad laws, what happens is they have no choice but to raise prices, slow hiring, and eventually that's going to hit our consumers and our households right in their pockets.
Yeah, and we certainly don't need higher prices in this economy.
We do not in New Jersey.
Well, your organization recently wrote an interesting column about something called the Climate Superfund Act. The Climate Superfund Act is being promoted by some misguided groups in several states, including New Jersey. This act would assign retroactive financial penalties on energy companies. Some people say that this could raise energy rates if costs are passed on to ratepayers. I think the last thing New Jersey needs is higher energy rates right now. So do you believe, is this one of those things, do you think this is a fair policy, or is it simply another hidden tax on New Jersey families?
We think this goes way too far. I would call it a hidden tax on New Jersey families. To your earlier point, we're already seeing that energy costs are going up, 20% this summer, possibly another 5% the next summer. This is going to hit our households directly. Now, there was a study that showed that this bill, if passed and followed the same trajectory as other states, it would actually cost our companies in New Jersey that pay New Jersey sales tax up to $75 billion. This isn't just going on to those companies. This is eventually going to be passed on to households. So we're going to see this affect transportation costs, pass-through costs through ways of contracts, and other costs as well, like energy.
Yeah, and that's certainly something that no New Jersey ratepayer needs right now.
No, absolutely not.
Well, I know that a state judge recently dismissed a similar lawsuit brought by the Attorney General, saying that states aren't really suited to set global climate policy, and this bill actually does nothing to lower greenhouse gas emissions. So why do you think that lawmakers are now trying to accomplish this, basically it's a money grab, through legislation when the courts have already rejected it?
Right, Jeanette, so what they're doing is, this is a national trend that we've seen from some of our peer states. New York passed similar legislation, I believe, and in New York, they're actually facing a lot of lawsuits to undo what was done by way of this legislation, or similar legislation. It's just a national trend, and I see why lawmakers would be interested in it, but it's just not good policy.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that sounds good, and it's kind of like a copycat bill from other states.
Exactly.
Well, supporters will say that the bill promotes accountability and environmental justice, but experts say that, as you said, it raises household energy costs at a time when bills are already through the roof. So I guess the end goal is, how should New Jersey balance climate goals with affordability?
Yeah, so New Jersey needs to find a better way to achieve the goal of environmental justice than by putting this on our taxpayers and on our businesses who are job creators for the state.
So finally, at a time when affordability is dominating the campaign platforms of both candidates for governor, you've seen the campaign ads where they're talking about energy rates and affordability, and the assembly is up for re-election. What advice would you give all candidates in terms of pursuing burdensome lawsuits as policy, such as this one that we're talking about?
I would encourage them to make sure they're taking a look at private causes of action, and even in legislation like this, to make sure that it's not burdensome on companies. We need to promote a fair, just, and affordable legal system that's also predictable. Bills like this, like the Climate Superfund Act, don't allow for that.
Well, you've certainly given us a lot to think about, and hopefully our lawmakers and our candidates will do the same. Alyssa, thank you so much for being with us, and we hope you'll visit again.
Thank you for having me.
I'm joined by Erick Ford, President of New Jersey Energy Policy Coalition. Erick, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate being on.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to talk about when it comes to energy in New Jersey. So I'm just going to get right into it. How would you describe the current state of New Jersey's energy market right now?
How would I describe the market? Well, clearly we are in a time where we need to bring more megawatts onto the grid, right? I would say we're probably in a time where supply and demand has hit a point where we need to build supply in the state. Some people would say it's a crisis right now. Others, would say that we need to take action. I think we've all come to realize, both in our state and in our nation, that the economy and the energy sector are symbiotic, and they both interact with each other, and there's a direct correlation between the two. I've been in this sector for 10 years, worked in government at the Board of Public Utilities for a little while, and been working in this industry ever since. And we are in a time of, I would say, time of choosing, right? Opportunity. I look at where we're at today as our state, nation, the world's entered into a new industrial revolution, right? Part of that has to do with energy. Part of that has to do with our state taking action on the opportunity there. Think about where we've gotten to today. Compared to 7 years ago, we've lost 4,100 megawatts of power inside our state, right? Which is a direct correlation as to why our prices are the way they are. We're going to need to build generation. We're going to have to build plants like nuclear power plants, probably look at natural gas power plants. In addition to that, also thinking about what other technologies are out there. There's a lot of innovation out there. There's a lot of opportunity. But I think at this time, some people would say it's a crisis. Maybe it is. Look, our electric bills are high. I know mine's high, right?
Yeah.
But it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to solve the problem, right? And also learn from maybe some missteps along the way. Let's think about 7 years ago. We probably didn't predict a pandemic, and we probably didn't foresee high inflation, right? Which are two key elements that really made a lot of changes to our society, right? 7 years ago, probably nobody worked from home. Now everybody's working from home if they can, right? Our technologies are advancing exponentially, and it's going to continue. So it's one of those things. It's an opportunity that, as a society, we have to seize on and say, do we want to embrace this opportunity? Do we want to have, the advanced industrial revolution part of our state, being here where we do manufacturing, where we're bringing in real jobs, where we're building energy and producing it in state, or do we let other states do it, like Pennsylvania, right? And right now, I'll be honest, Pennsylvania's probably eating our lunch.
Yeah.
So
in order to move forward, right, we need to learn from the past. And take me back a little bit. You've been doing energy policy for a really long time. You've been in this space. What policy decisions over the past decade or so set the stage for where we are today? How can we learn from our past mistakes in New Jersey?
Well, I think one of the things is to think about the market in general. I think we've learned a lot in the last year that everybody hears the word PJM, right? To be quite honest, I've known them for 10 years of my life, right?
Yeah.
They are this sleepy organization you don't really know about, but understanding their role is probably very important. One, PJM is like, are the people that are kind of like the ones that control the highways and byways, right? They control the transmission lines and the poles that bring the power to you, right? Their job is to make sure that power moves around in the region, and from there, it's up to the states to make their decisions on policies for generation, emissions, things of that nature. Our state went down a certain route, right? Looked to build offshore wind. But to be quite honest, even if they built all that offshore wind, that would not have been sufficient for power we need for today or tomorrow, right? A lot of people would sit there and say this was something you probably didn't see coming, but there are reports from NERC, not FERC, but NERC, that showed back in 2022, we were seeing more generation coming off our grids around the country, not just here, but around the country, than coming on, which would allow you to conclude that probably should start building, right?
Right.
Real stuff, right? Not a few megawatts here or there, which, by the way, when you're looking at the whole issue, you're going to have an all of the above approach. And I mean all of the above approach that's economically viable and practical, right? You think about when you look at a nuclear power plant, let's take a look at the three we have, right? They generate about 40% of our power in the state, right? So if you build another one, maybe you get the 50, 55, 60%, right? Give or take, add a few more, maybe that closes the gap even more. But in addition to that, we're going to have to look at building more natural gas plants, or at least
100%.
upgrading the ones we have. Then on top of that, there's a lot of great technology out there. There are things like fuel cells. There are things like small turbines, which are really small natural gas power plants, right? By the way, those things are kind of like off the shelf. Literally, you can buy it and then have it delivered in 9 months. So you can start looking at bringing megawatts on soon. But in addition to that, it's taken a deeper look as to how we got here, right? What did we do wrong? What did we not plan right? Right? As those power plants were coming off in New Jersey, who was watching to make sure that we were making sure that we were adding megawatts inside our own state while stuff was coming off, right? And that really
That's
was the crux.
really good point.
That's why we're in the area of the market we're in now with the prices being so high. PJM is broken up into smaller zones for economics in the pricing, and you can see, that's from like I said, I do this every day, right? So you can see the separation that New Jersey was starting to see in that pricing from everybody else. And the question was, when that started happening, maybe we should have rethought some of the regulations we were doing or approaches we were taking. And from there, again, it's a learning curve. A little bit.
So how can our policymakers, talking about learning from past mistakes, how can they do everything that we're talking about? Balance investment in proven energy sources to get the watts back on the grid, balance clean energy, which is a priority, and invest in new technologies that you talked about. How can they balance all of those things going forward? Because it's critically important to get those energy bills down, and it's important for businesses to keep our employers competitive.
Right. So here's a couple thoughts. First of all, when you're looking at the price that we're at now, that is an overall price in the energy market since it's a commodity, right? That price factors in what's called capacity market. A capacity market means the absolute amount of power we think we're going to need at any given day, which back on June 25th and 26th of this year, we were pretty close to that number in the PJM territory. Not all the way at the top, but we were pretty close. It was a hot couple days, and when you're looking at that, you can see all the resources coming in. When you're looking at who's delivering what, nuclear power is the base load, right? Then you have natural gas coming in with coal, and then you see all the other resources coming in. I think solar was around 12% total for the entire region of PJM, right? when we're looking at how do we make sure that our policymakers are, and lawmakers, policymakers, decision makers, even gubernatorial candidates and everybody else really understand what needs to happen, first ask yourself, what can we turn back on, right? There are interconnections sitting out there today that probably could be utilized right now, if not relatively soon. You know, I think maybe thinking about where are all those interconnections at, how many of those could be restarted if necessary, what regulations are in place that are impeding opportunity to turn them back on. Or, by the way, and this is one of the things I've had discussions with lawmakers, you think about where we have interconnections that are places like solar right now, right?
Right.
They passed the storage bill, they signed that, that's fantastic, right? But what about putting fuel cells there? What about putting small turbines, adding more megawatts into that connection that's already there? By the way, you know, solar has a lifespan about 20, 25 years, give or take, right? We've been developing solar for 20 plus years. Probably some of those are at the end of life, right? So what are we doing to utilize those interconnections where those solar systems are going to come off, right? And how are we going to utilize that? So it's really going to be a comprehensive plan. And the other part of it is going to come down to, I'm going to say this, the New Jersey lawmakers and whoever's next governor, accepting the fact that whatever's decided on has to last beyond 4 years, right? I deal a lot with people in the financial sector, talking with them about this. And the most important thing they say are two things in New Jersey. One, permitting, and two, certainty.
Right.
If it's going to take 2.5 years to put a shovel in the ground, it's going to be difficult, right? And if New Jersey's policies change, where one day you're building, the next day you're not, that's gonna be difficult for them. So they need certainty. You know, that's the biggest driver, permits and certainty. And once that's solved, you know, you will see companies willing to come into New Jersey to build. And the problem is, though, a lot of people don't realize our state is competing with 49 other states.
Yeah.
Be honest with that, right? Texas, about 2 months ago, announced a power plant that's going to be 11 gigawatts. 11 gigawatts. That's a huge amount, right? And they're going to be powering data centers, not just in Texas, but around the country. That's their plan. What New Jersey needs to think about is a comprehensive plan that has a short-term, medium-term, long-term plan, which is probably a 10-year plan, give or take, which includes nuclear, advanced reactors, small modular reactors, AP1000s. And with that idea, you know, you can really get megawatts back on quicker than most people think. But then it's also thinking about how do we stabilize the rates while we're doing this, right?
Right.
Because that's the other question. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're out of time right now, but you've definitely given lawmakers, our gubernatorial candidates, and policymakers a lot to think about. We'd love to have you back on again. Thank you so much for coming, Erick.
Thanks for having me.
That's all for today. Thanks for joining us.